Hey, y'all. I'm Bud Elliott, and this is Cover 3 College Football Summer School. We've done our research on the teams, and now we're bringing on the top team experts from the 24/7 Sports Network to help us fill in the blanks. Please follow us on Twitter at Cover 3 Podcast. That's Cover 3 Podcast. And leave us a 5-star review on Apple and Spotify. All right. Class is in session. Hey, guys. Welcome back in to the Cover 3 Summer School edition, talking a little college football here. And next on my list of teams to make sure I'm filling in all the blanks is Pitt. And no better follow for Pitt than Johnny McGonigal of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. You can follow him on Twitter at jmcgonigal9. Johnny, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, bud. I appreciate it.
I'm excited to talk a little Pitt. I feel like I'm very high on Pitt. We get some stuff on social media saying I shouldn't be so high on Pitt, but I feel like there's a lot of pieces here, and I want to just kind of fill in some of these blanks. And 11-3 overall last year. All the power ratings said they were a legitimate top 10 team. I think the draft will show that over the next 2 years probably. But I want to start with the offense because it could look potentially different this year. Mark Whipple is out as OC. Are you anticipating anything really different with the new play caller?
Yeah, I think it's interesting with Mark Whipple leaving and resigning a few days after the ACC championship game and going to Nebraska. They bring in Frank Cignetti Jr., who had been here at Pittsburgh previously. He got a start here. He's from the area. He was a GA way back when and was the OC under Dave Wanstedt for a couple seasons as well. And so he's back and he brings this pro style system that he's developed over the years. He was an NFL assistant for a very long time. And you talk to Keaton Slovis, you talk to Nick Patty, and they've been shown cut-ups of Aaron Rodgers and Eli Manning running the same concepts and routes that they're going to be running this upcoming season. And so, look, I think this is going to be a pro-style system. And but the one thing that throughout spring that we've heard from players, coaches, everyone is that they're going to run the ball more. They were one of the most pass-happy teams in the country the last 3 seasons under Mark Whipple, and I think they're going to be handing the ball off a little bit more to Izzy Abanikanda, Vincent Davis, and the running backs they have.
Is that leads kind of perfectly to my next question? Obviously, Kenny Pickett went to New York. He was a Heisman finalist. Probably not getting that out of Keaton Slovis. Don't know, but if you're playing the odds, he's probably not a Heisman finalist. Most people are not. What kind of drop-off do you anticipate from Pickett to Slovis? And do you think that they would have tried to run the ball more if you had the OC change, but Pickett came back? Or do you think this is more of, hey, we need to be better at running the ball in case the quarterback play is not quite as good as we had it?
I think it's more of the latter. And even talking to running backs coach Andre Powell earlier during camp, he said that the team setup is just better this year than it was last year for the running game to kind of take the lead. When you have a guy like Kenny Pickett who, is so experienced in general, and then also specifically with Mark Whipple's offense and the schemes and the concepts and the routes and everything, when you got a guy who's that good and that good at knowing an offense, you rely on him, right? He's the guy that will propel you to what they were last year, which is an ACC champion. But when you got a new guy coming in, at coordinator, at quarterback, the running game is an easy thing to lean on, especially you look up front what they have. Their entire offensive line is coming back. Carter Warren, especially left tackle, could have gone to the NFL. He had a Senior Bowl invite. He decides to come back, and so does the rest of the guys as well. And so when you've got that continuity up front, you got a guy in Jordan Addison, the Blitnikoff Award winner, obviously, as well. And so they've got weapons surrounding Keaton Slovis, assuming he ends up being the starter. Pat Narduzzi hasn't, given us, an official announcement on that, but that is the expectation, obviously, after transferring over from USC. And so I think whoever the quarterback is, they're going to have a running game, and they're going to have an offensive line in front of them to help them out.
I had a question for you. How has Mumfield looked? At Akron last year, passing game-wise, was kind of a disaster, but he was a bright spot for them in recent years, the receiver transfer that Pitt took.
Yeah, I mean, he was one of the most sought-after guys in the portal in terms of young talent, and was a freshman All-American last year, over 700 yards, 8 touchdowns, and he's really, he's fit the bill. He's been as advertised, and I think the coaching staff is really happy with how he's looked and how he's performed during spring camp. First play of the spring game this past weekend, he catches a 55-yarder from Nick Patty, and so I think he's going to be a big part of this offense. And you look at what's around him in that wide receiver room. You lose Tayseer Mack, who was, when healthy, one of the better receivers over the last few years. But Mumfield, Addison, and Jared Wayne, who I think was maybe the unsung player really of that offense and of that team last year, second leading receiver. And so you've got three really good guys to lean on, and three guys that you can really interchange, whether it's slot, outside, bring a lot of different looks that defense is going to have to deal with.
No doubt about it. Also losing my guy Shockey from down in Fort Myers, but it seems like this is still a pretty loaded room. Let's switch to the other side of the ball, if you would. I mean, this is a Pat Narduzzi team. For a while, I was following what he did at Michigan State, and then I was following what he did at Pitt, and I was like, I don't know if he's got the guys to run what he wants to run. And like the last couple of years, I feel like those guys have fallen into place, and they stopped giving up so many explosive plays and without really sacrificing the tackles for loss and knocking offenses off schedule. It's like once he got the dudes in there who could run what he wanted to run, it looked kind of like the Michigan State defenses used to look. And this year, am I wrong on this? All 7 defensive linemen who played 250 plus snaps are back?
Yeah. Keyshawn Camp is really the only guy that they lose. And, he's been in and out of the lineup over the last few years because of injury. And so you look at, I think it's like 37 sacks came from the defensive line last year, and 35 of them returned. And so you've got Haba Baldonado on the outside. He had an NFL decision to make, and he would have been drafted if he left, but decided to come back. And he had 9 sacks last year. And there were Charlie Partridge, a defensive line coach, told us this earlier in camp that he felt there were 6 or 7, would-be sacks that he was just inches away from getting last year. And so he's hoping to add that to his tally. And you've got Deslin Alexander, John Morgan, Dayon Hayes here from Pittsburgh is a guy who I think will step up and be a bigger part of the rotation at the end. And on the inside, Kalijah Cansey is, one of the best players in the ACC, not just on this team. I mean, he's going to be a preseason All-American guy and showed that last year. So they're super deep at defensive end and defensive tackle even, and not just Cansey. You guys got Devin Danielson, and I can just rattle off these names that all these guys are back. And so that really helps when you have to fill holes at linebacker. And when the defense, really, you leave your corners out on an island and you let your DBs do their thing and really just let's get after the quarterback. They're pretty well set there in that department.
So going to that secondary that you mentioned, letting those guys, be on an island, 5 of 6 guys who played 350 plus snaps return this year. Are you expecting them to be able to hold serve what they did last year? Or do you think there's a real chance, are you expecting them to be better, or just can they hold serve? You're not really expecting a drop off, I would assume, given that who returns.
No, I'm not expecting much of a drop off there. I mean, you lose Damari Mathis, who in 2019 was, in terms of completion rate allowed, was one of the better corners in the country. And last year, he was one of the better corners in the country against the run. So you lose a guy who has a lot of experience, but at the same time at corner, you have Marquez Williams, who they have a lot of faith in and has stepped up from a leadership role in that room. AJ Woods has really grown from the start of last season. He had a rough Tennessee game up until having a great ACC championship game against Wake Forest, and so they expect a lot out of him. And then even depth pieces like Rashad Battle moving back from safety to corner. So I don't think you're going to miss a lot at corner. And then at safety, Brandon Hill and Eric Hallett are 2 guys who stepped in and replacing DeMar Hamlin and Paris Ford from the previous season. Those guys had to learn really how to play with each other last year. And I think they ultimately did a pretty good job, but not having to learn how to play with each other, now just going out and knowing and just having that mutual understanding back there and knowing how to set up the defense and run everything, I think is really going to be helpful when you've got that kind of continuity in the back end. So I don't think you're going to see like these major jumps in turnovers or anything, or really going to see this major drop off. I think they're just kind of hold serve, like you said, and continue to be solid back there.
I mean, this just feels like a Pat Narduzzi team with a nasty defense, probably a more reliable run game, still have weapons on the outside. This may just all circle back to the first question we talked about, which was QB. What is the actual drop off there? I mean, if he's good, Pitt could be favored in all 12 games.
For sure. And the way that I've always phrased it is, Kenny Pickett last year was an 11 out of 10. He was just on point pretty much every single drive, every single play, every single game. I don't think they need Keaton Slovis to be an 11 out of 10 with the guys around him and given the schedule. And look, you open with West Virginia, and that's a rivalry game, and then you have Tennessee coming in after that. So that's where I can see the running game. You want to get that going early and try and alleviate some of the pressure off of Slovis early against Power 5 opponents. But this team is set up to be a winner. It just is. You look at what they have in the ACC Coastal, and I look at what Pat Narduzzi is bringing now in his 8th season. That's stability. There's 4 other teams in the Coastal that are, establishing an identity, establishing a culture. They already have that going for themselves at Pitt. I mean, they unveiled the ACC championship trophy, got their rings this past weekend, and they're looking for another one. And so I think they have an opportunity to do that at the very least, to be, I think, favorites in the Coastal, and then get back to the ACC championship game.
No doubt about it. Johnny McGonigal, Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Please make sure you guys follow him at jmcgonigal9. One more time, at jmcgonigal9. Johnny, really appreciate you joining Cover 3 Summer School Edition.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, bud. Appreciate it.
All right, buddy. Take care. All right, that's the bell. Cover 3 College Football Summer School is over for today. But don't worry. We'll be back soon with even more episodes filling you in on the top teams in college football. Please give us those 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Follow us on YouTube and on Twitter at Cover 3 Podcast. And we'll see y'all soon.